art to you?
I think art in its core is the first language. Like if you think of the caves and the way stories were first told, that was the way we communicated. And I think it's still the only language that we can all understand, no matter what language we speak. I think when you see an artwork, it can move you in ways that you're not even sure why it's moving you. It can tap into your soul, into your subconscious. And sometimes, you don't need to meditate before seeing an artwork. It creates that same effect.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley in partnership with Leumitech, sponsored by Homeward Ventures, Hippo Insurance, Upwest Labs, Synergy Global, Hillel at Stanford, Leap, Birthright Excel, Sharonna Partners, and in media partnership with CTech. Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. This episode is all about art and entrepreneurship and tech. Meet Sharonna Karni Cohen, the CEO of Dreame. Sharonna is an artivist and entrepreneur, and she is also the CEO and co-creator at Dreame, a platform for commissioning art with over 500 artists around the world, inspired by a vision, memory, story, or goals. She also works with the leading companies and hosts guided meditations to the future. She is the co-creator of The Big Dream, one global art installation envisioning the future of the world that has traveled to 20 countries so far, and in April to the International Space Station with the Rakia Mission. She is an advocate of utilizing our imagination more.
I'm excited to talk about art. We just talked about how I need more art in the back of my wall, and so I'm excited to have a painting, working something with Dreame and understanding the company better. And the work that you're doing is both, it's fascinating on a few levels, both on an entrepreneurial level, but then also on an industry domain level. The work that you're doing with space and these types of projects, they're so cool to me. And I'm really excited to hear about your personal journey as well as Dreame and what you're doing with space as well. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me a little bit, Dreame, what is it about?
So Dreame started actually on a bench in Rothschild. I met two entrepreneurs. They are the founders today of WSC Sports, so complete opposite of what I'm doing. And I wasn't in the tech world. I was actually just after time out working with your sister, we just discovered. And I met them and I was really inspired just by what it is to be an entrepreneur and how you can make a difference. But I wasn't so into sport. And with their help, these two entrepreneurs, Aviv and Danny, I started a company called Dreame with the mission of empowering anyone to become an artist. So anyone can send an idea, a story, a memory, a vision, a fantasy, and then within 2 weeks have it turned into art and sent to your home as a print, as a yoga mat, as a phone case. But in its core, it's basically self-expression. The greatest analogy is a tattoo. 1 in 3 people under the age of 30 are getting tattoos nowadays. So
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I need to get on. I need to get on that as well then. But joking aside, I was thinking about it at some point. But if you're looking at self-expression and this idea for Dreame, and you're talking about the ability for any person to be able to creatively express themselves, creating sort of a marketplace where some people have, their vision, some others have the ability to actually make it happen. How did this originate? Where does this understanding of yours come from that self-expression could be an interesting business model for this world?
So I think from my end, it started just as being a bit bored from seeing selfies and photos of cats on a newsfeed. And I was a bit nervous as to what's happening with the imagination and where will the imagination go? The more that we're using screens and phones and watching TV, the less we're dreaming. And we used to for example, on the train, look outside the window and daydream. That's how J.K. Rowling actually came up with the concept of Harry Potter. And so the less we're dreaming, the less imagination, the less creativity, the less inventions. Larry Page actually claims that he came up with the concept of Google in a dream. So I think that's the core of self-expression. It's who am I beyond what is my photo? At what nightclub am I? It's what am I dreaming about? How far is my imagination going to go? And that's sort of what we're mainly trying to tap into.
So how is the customer experience actually work end to end from the moment that I, have something that I want to create or I have this idea to the moment where I hang it up on the wall? What does this chain look like for you?
So you have different options. So you can, if for example, you're creating a dream list, which is like your goals for the year ahead, then you like fill out different questions, like where's the place you want to be more? Who's the person you want to spend more time with? You add colors that you like from our color palette. You can add a song that you want the artist to listen to while they're making the art, which is a really popular feature. And then you can add your Instagram and photos of you. And then it's all up to the artist's interpretation. So that's also another kind of unique factor in Dreame. There's not like you don't have like a run through and then have a potential draft or a second draft. Like what you've commissioned is then what you get in the artist's interpretation. And like 99% so far of our customers have liked what they've received because they've chosen the artist based on the style.
How do you explain the fact that, so many people are enjoying or are appreciating what they received? Because obviously, even if they liked the artist's, style before, when they send off their brief, what's going on in their mind is, they have this specific idea perhaps of what they're imagining it'll come out. And all of a sudden it's coming out something a little bit different, but they're still able to appreciate it. How do you explain that? Because humans in the past aren't very good with the disappointments from things that deviate from what they actually expect.
It's a really good question. I think that's the core of co-creation, which I think as well is like the next big trend in general in social networks and platforms. So I think most of the humans creating art on Dreame are just really excited about the fact that an artist on the other side of the world is interpreting it. And it's a curated platform. So it's not like any artist can join Dreame. Therefore, the standards are high. And we're making sure before it's sent off as well that it's ticking off all the Dreame boxes. But I actually love to quote Dan Ariely, who's been an amazing advisor to me and one of our most reoccurring customers, because he actually said that his favorite thing is this element of surprise. Like so much of what you're consuming today, you know exactly what you're getting. Whereas with Dreame, it's just a complete surprise on your doorstep waiting for you.
I love it. It's an element of surprise. So where's the company now in terms of, its progress, what's happened so far? Where are you today? 2022.
So we've made over 10,000 co-created artworks. Each artwork is by the artist's name and the dreamer's name, the commissioner's name.
From brief to shipping.
Wow. We've printed that art on phone cases, yoga mats, as I mentioned. And we've also been working with a lot of companies in the last 2 years. It's like a great gift for employees. And also we've been doing workshops to help employees figure out what their dreams are, what their visions are for the future of the company. And art in offices in general is just a nice thing to have, especially when it's created by the employees themselves. And then recently, thanks to the NFT trend, we've also had a lot more going on with our reproduction model. So actually from day one of Dreame, our whole idea was not to create like a traditional marketplace, so that when you, let's say, commission an artwork and we end up loving your artwork, we offer you the opportunity to join our secondary marketplace in which some of the Dreame art is then sold onwards. And then you, the dreamer, and the artist make money every time from that. Thanks to the NFT world, that whole model is a lot more understood now, even though it was working for us before and we had like a physical gallery where we were selling a lot of these reproductions of Dreamies.
Fantastic. So this obviously goes hand in hand with the other organization that you're very much involved with, that you also co-created, the Big Dream, which I think, is very much aligned, also obviously around the idea of art, but also about the importance of art in our lives and the co-creation, the way that art can, help bring us together. Tell me a little bit about this project.
So the Big Dream started in Tel Aviv. The idea was inspired by how many cynical dystopian visions people had for the future of Israel. And I set out to collect thousands of dreams from people on how they envision the future of the Middle East. And the idea was to create a more utopian vision. And then with an amazing artist and me training, we created one artwork, scanned it, sliced it into 1,500 pieces, puzzled it together with yoga mats in Kikar Rabin. And then everyone came to do meditation on the future of the Middle East. And since then, a lot of the reoccurring dreams have come to life, like the Abraham agreements and many other dreams related to the weather, like more rain, seems to be more rain recently. And the whole mission of the Big Dream is to bring people more together, like dreaming together. What can we do if, let's say, 1,000 people's dreams go into one artwork? And then we did it a year later in Jerusalem. And this year we're doing the Big Dream World. So inspired by the Sustainable Development Goals for the world in 2030, we've created 500 artworks inspired by 50,000 dreams about how the world will be in 10 years from now. And this video composed.
How did you get those? How did you get the 50,000 dreams?
A lot with embassies around the world. Really good tip if you're doing a project like this, approach the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Literally, you had your go-to market was working with the embassy so that they go out and get you those dreams. That's crazy.
And also just different organizations, friends, and all the location partners that we had. So for example, in New York, it was in Times Square and Zaz Gallery. In Tokyo, it was in the Shibuya Crossing. In Norway, it was in this beautiful snow location in a town called Hamar. So the whole town of Hamar were like collecting dreams from people around Norway. Most of the dreams are very much similar to each other, no matter where people are around the world. For me, it was interesting that, so many of us in the Middle East dream for peace, for example. And only now recently, some of the artists are like, oh, now I understand that dream. Like for them, it didn't make sense when we first started this project. So it's interesting as well to see like how the politics of the world also affect different people's dreams. And the last location that it's traveling to in 10 days is the International Space Station. So it will be projected there with the Rakia Mission and Eitan Stiva, who's the second Israeli to go to space.
Incredible. So what does it mean that it's going to be projected there in the International Space Station?
So I'll start with why, and then I'll explain what. It started with Amit, Eitan's son, who's actually the one who taught me a lot more about the Sustainable Development Goals. And when Amit and I were talking about how it'd be nice to kind of express these goals in a kind of more popular way. Sometimes when people are looking at the UN Sustainable Development Goals, they're like, oh, wow, how would I even get close to being involved in one of those, in achieving one of those? So that's when we started thinking, okay, let's create the individual artworks. And how amazing would it be to send them to space so that while the dreams are being projected in space, people will be able to see if their dream is in real time being projected according to where the space station is around the world, because it travels 16 times around the world every day. So you'll be able to see a map. Eitan will be interacting with that map in real time, live, like through a camera. And people will be able to see, oh, my dream about floating on water for the rest of my life is dreamt in 18 other locations around the world. Like there's an algorithm that shows the similar dreams through NLP. So the whole idea is like to connect between the world's dreams, to remind people that most of us have the same dreams, and to turn them into art, to show it through a more universal language.
Amazing. Where does it, this idea of art, obviously that's like the essential theme here across everything you're doing. Well, what is the significance of art to you?
I think art in its core is the first language. Like if you think of the caves and the way stories were first told, that was the way we communicated. And I think it's still the only language that we can all understand, no matter what language we speak. I think when you see an artwork, it can move you in ways that you're not even sure why it's moving you. It can tap into your soul, into your subconscious. And sometimes, you don't need to meditate before seeing an artwork. It creates that same effect. And I think it's a really educational tool as well. I think many people learn from themselves, about themselves, when they get their dreamy artwork, because you're sitting there and you're just looking at all the different layers of it and all the different interpretations.
And so at the end, if we're looking at art, and its role today, obviously it's changed over time. And the way we interact with art has changed as well. Do you expect to change the way we interact with art? Is it going to play a more or less significant part of our lives as humans as we go throughout the generations?
I definitely think so. I definitely think every team now is going to want a art director, graphic designer as like a co-founder. I definitely, if I'm thinking about like high tech, I think design and art and the way things look are crucial for how you tell a story, for how you express something. I think with the whole trend with NFTs, while a lot of people are still confused about it, I think there is a lot of value. You know, like digital artists, in my opinion, are as amazing as watercolor or oil painting artists. At the same time, a lot of people are obviously like trading in NFTs just because they're trading, but there are lots of crypto native artists that are in it just for the art. And I think the biggest trend, if I'm going back to what I said at the beginning, is more co-creation. And I think art does lie in the heart of that. So I think as humans, we're going to constantly want to more and more so co-create with other people. And I think art is at the heart of creation. So, yeah.
And so if you're looking at a business like Dreame, you know, what is sort of your vision? How do you see this company evolving over time now to where, you know, and what's the goal with this company,
So
really?
the goal in like 10 years is that firstly, in your house and in your office, all the art that surrounds you is created by you or your friends or people that you know. And secondly, that you can make money from art that you've made with your own imagination. So potentially, I'll be wearing a t-shirt with an artwork inspired by a poem that you wrote. And we as humans will be constantly co-creating and constantly generating capital from each other's imaginations and growing together through our imaginations.
So now, obviously, that's obvious. That's an amazing vision. And now, more tangibly about, you know, the strategy to actually get it to run as an entrepreneur. Now, you know, what are the biggest challenges that you're facing with this? Obviously, you're creating a marketplace. You need the supply and demand on both sides. So you need to have a good experience for both the artist, but also for the person who's envisioning it. And you obviously need to have a complicated logistics chain of ideation to shipping, which is obviously not trivial either, especially with today's expectation for a 2-day delivery or whatever it may be. What are the biggest challenges that you're facing as an entrepreneur with this company?
To be honest, the biggest challenge right now is the scale, and I'm looking for a CEO right now. I've understood that I'm not that person, which of course is sometimes hard for us to admit as entrepreneurs. I'd like to stay on as like creative director, head of business development. I definitely believe that Dreame can scale like 10 times, and slowly but surely I've been getting there. But I'd say that is my biggest challenge, because in terms of the product, in terms of the community, in terms of the marketing, I figured out how to do it as well with the B2B and like, you know, selling it to corporates, and then the corporate clients indirectly then become the new consumers. So now it's just a matter of finding a CEO for Dreame.
It's a very weird idea, right? To say, okay, maybe I'm not the right person for this role. Let's find somebody who may be more suited. Was that easy for you, this process of coming to that conviction or that understanding?
I think being an entrepreneur in general, as you know, is not easy. So I think making decisions is 10 times is 10 times easier. So I think the process of pretending, even subconsciously, I can do this, I can be the CEO, was the challenge. The moment I understood that I'm not the person to be the CEO, I think is when it became a bit easier. And I'm definitely looking for someone that's had experience, that's had their own company, that's scaled it, that's potentially even had an exit, that's now looking to join something potentially in the self-expression world, in the art world, to take it to the next level.
Right. And I'm sure it's not a trivial thing to do that, right? I mean, especially how many paintings have you already shipped, you said? Over 10,000. So you know, it's a running machine, and I'm sure that's and I have to say, you know, it's an amazing ability to come and say, okay, this is what the company needs. This is how we can get it to be 10x. And yeah, I can learn along the way, but you know what? Maybe there's somebody who's done this before that I can learn from. And you know, life is long, and sure, as an entrepreneur, you don't build one venture, you build constantly new ventures. And so this is something that I've been thinking about myself recently. You know, who is the right CEO for some of these companies? And when is the right time to be an entrepreneur? When is the right time to be a CEO? They're not necessarily two of the same things. What do you enjoy most about this whole process?
By the way, I really like what you just said. Like, definitely not being an entrepreneur is not the same as being a CEO. I think I enjoy the most just hearing customers' reactions from when they've received their artworks, to the extent of like 2 of my best friends have actually proposed to their husbands today with Dreame artworks, and just the husband's reactions to receiving those artworks. hearing about someone who, like a husband who created a Dreame for his wife who had leukemia, and over time she recovered, and they shared that seeing that artwork in front of them every day just really helped them. I think it's just the really human side of being the entrepreneur in a business like this, that it is so human orientated. Of course, it has its tech elements, but that's been like the highlights, when you're kind of reminded that you're doing something that helps someone or makes someone smile. It sounds cheesy,
Incredible.
but that's the truth.
Incredible. Sharonna, thank you so much. This was awesome. This was so enlightening, and I love the model, and I love the vision of how you see the world beyond, the business side or whatever that is, but the vision of how the world is and how do we continue the self-expression with co-creation. I think that's awesome. So thank you very much,
You
and
too.
stay safe and stay healthy.